Hi everyone and welcome to my show. I've got three things we're going to talk about today. One of them is Harry and Meghan, particularly Harry, and the way that the media are now responding to that. The other thing I'll talk about is Perrottet dressing up as a Nazi, and the final thing is George Repellent. So we're going to talk about all those things, not in great detail, just enough to make you feel contented with the fact that you've actually tuned into my channel. Now, I'm going to start with Harry. Now, the interesting thing to me about Harry's release of a book which has sold, a non-fiction book that has broken the record for the most number of sales. Well done, Harry. Glad to know that you've got a ghostwriter who knows how to write. That was very affirming. And that's not a criticism. Most people have ghostwriters, and in this particular case, did a fabulous job. I understand. And I must say that I haven't read the book, so I can't talk about the quality of the writing, but nevertheless, apparently there are many, many people who are interested in what's happened to Harry's life and his critique of the institution known as the monarchy. So I'm going to talk about an article which came out in the Weekend Australian this week, which highlights to me the antagonism that sits towards Meghan and Harry. Harry in particular, because his book Spare has been such a success. How dare he have something as successful as a book written about his family in such a way that he is critical of most of the things that happened within the family, and particularly those issues which have hurt him. One of the most interesting features for me, I think, has been the fact that the media has taken sequences out of this out of his book, and they've talked about it out of context with whatever it was, the point that he initially was making by highlighting it in the first instance. And this is just it is so typical of the way the media have behaved around him, and the media behave generally, that it is, to me, astonishing that they have done what they've done. But there again, shouldn't be too surprised, because after all, it is the media, and particularly the right-wing media and the tabloids have had a field day in relation to Harry. Now, interesting enough, I did note that his book has sold more in the UK. So where you receive, if people were so critical of Harry, would they have bought the book? What sort of people are purchasing this book? Are they just interested in the royal family? Are they interested in the intricacies that sit within the royal family, which none of us really knew about, speculated about, I guess, but didn't really know about until such time as he wrote this book? Now, so who's buying it? I suspect they're people that are just interested in all that sort of stuff, and they're actually people who can read. So this is worth continuing to monitor what's happening around this book. Now, my belief is that eventually this kind of will fade off into the distance, and we'll have less and less to do with Harry and Meghan as time goes by, as they develop their own lives in the US, and that they start to rebuild whatever relationship is left between Prince Charles, William, and all the rest of the family, or King Charles, I should say, and the rest of the family. So let's see what this particular article has. I haven't got the name of the author here, because the way I do it is I put it on my Remarkable 2 and then I show you what it is. So I haven't got the name of the article specifically, or the writer. However, there is no doubt that this particular writer is extremely critical and extremely right-wing. I just want to take a few elements of things that she said, just to give you an idea. Now, the article actually is quite a long article about where she believes this whole issue around the royal family sits, and her particular critique of Harry and Meghan. So I'll just show it to you. So the first part is, so he used to live in a tiny cottage. So this is the criticism of him now living where he does live, in this mansion in the US, and where he was living in this cottage on the Kensington estate. So he used to live in a tiny cottage, a cottage that was palace adjacent. Now, my wife and I, a couple of years ago, fortunately, had a chance to go to the UK and did see Kensington Palace, which is just next door to Hyde Park, not very far away from the main palace, so Buckingham Palace. So we have got a sense as to what this place was like. Didn't see this cottage that they're now referring to, but it's massive, right? It's a massive home available to William and to Harry, and that Harry chose to, I don't know which Harry chose to live in the cottage, or it was a lot of the cottage. I don't know the story around that. However, it's a bloody big place. So it's probably a bigger place than whatever the mansion that they're supposed to be living in the US is. So drawing this comparison just fascinates me. And she starts off, of course, by saying, I used to live in a cottage that was palace adjacent. Right, so everybody has a cottage that sits next to their palace. That's quite common. That's what he calls Nottingham Cottage. His former resident inside Kensington Palace, a home that was more outhouse than apartment. Now, I don't know how many of you actually have an outhouse, or call an outhouse used to be referred to as a toilet. This place is far from that, and don't know how many of you lived in an outhouse that was next to a palace. It was constructed for smaller people, humans of bygone era. Now, I know that that's pretty much the case, because in Melbourne there's Cook's Cottage, which was a place built by Captain Cook, and when you walk in there, it is tiny. You have to duck your head, you know, because people back in those days, the tallest person was, 5'4" or something, and so they built buildings accordingly. So he lives in this very old cottage, which was very small. So kind of get all of that. Big deal, as far as I'm concerned. The one enduring theme throughout Harry's latest PR blitz, culminating in this book, is that he matures like... Now, I really hate the way that she's defined this. I think this is just so freaking judgmental. Judging from how he used to see the world, so he's changed about how he sees the world, granted. His upbringing stank more than a slab of Roquefort, and in turn, it made him more dense than a block of cheddar. Now, I can tell you one thing about Harry from the interviews that I've watched is that he's not dense, he's not stupid. But the person who's writing this, clearly in my view, is pretty stupid herself, because she doesn't understand what it has meant for Harry to make the decisions that he's made in order to separate himself from the royal family. Now, and this is the final thing. Now, this is a very long critique of... So if you want to watch it, if you want to read it, it's in the Weekend Australian, feel free. It's garbage paper, but nevertheless, I subscribe because it comes up with some shit that's worth talking about. Yet, he does say here, and this is a sort of criticism that really gripes me, I guess, is why would you even say this? So she says, yet what on earth did Markle, herself, an accomplished professional with hustle and good head on her shoulders, see in him? Now, why would you even make a comment like that? Because, I don't know whether she's thought at all about the fact that these two young people, for whatever reason, simply fell in love. Is the assumption there that she fell in love with, or she does or does not love Harry because he is a prince and that he's part of the royal family? I can assure you that if that was her goal in life, was to embed herself in the royal family and then make the decision to go to the US and all the other shit that's happened, then I'm pretty much convinced that that wasn't her total intention, because she stuck with him regardless. So, I'd be interested to know whether you think this stuff around Markle and Meghan and Harry is going to come to an end. I'm pretty much convinced that it will at some particular point. If you want to contact me, please go to my website, which you can now see. You can email me at this particular address. And if you're watching this on YouTube, which no doubt most people will be, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe, ring the bell so that you can get further notifications and so that we can have more of these conversations in the future. I'm trying to do as many as I can, and I would love to be able to have these conversations with you as well. So thanks everybody for being with me. Take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.